Welcome, everybody. Happy Easter. So lovely to be with you. Of course, a couple announcements. Most of you have heard this, but May 12th through the 14th, we'll be having an online retreat. Please sign up soon. We're going to examine what it means to be free. And what are the things that block us, that veil us on the path. And we're going to be taking the time and the energy to face these things. So that's the whole point of this journey, for us to be free here on planet Earth. When I say free, of course, I'm speaking about free of the mental confusion and afflictions, our own often self-created turmoil, and some of it's turmoil that we've picked up from our parents, from our education, from our culture. And when we are clear, and awareness is simply here, unobstructed, we see the beauty and the radiance of this world. Well, I was out in the desert this weekend and feeling incredibly empty. And at the same time, because I was so empty and had nothing to think about, I just was looking around, just an absolute wonder of the beauty of life here on planet Earth. Because when our mind is full, it's hard for us to be spacious. It's hard for us to be in the here and now. Most of us live in the past or the future. But to be awake is to live here and in this moment, and to see, to live, to act, to speak from this space of love, from this space of peace. And so I do hope you can join the retreat May 12th through the 14th. Of course, we're having an in-person retreat July 16th through 21st. I do hope you can come to that as well. And yeah, I think those are my my announcements. I feel like I had one more thing, but I can't think of it in this moment. So anyways, why don't we close down our eyes, just connecting with our heart and the beauty and the innocence of our own being. The beauty and the innocence of our own being. As we can take a couple of deep, full breaths, feeling into the heart, feeling into the chest. And just scanning the body, scanning the throat, the heart, the chest, the shoulders, just seeing if there's any tension and giving yourself permission to relax that. And to soften. To open. The beauty and the immediacy of this moment. I invite you to take a couple more deep breaths and feeling into the lower belly, the solar plexus, the pelvis, just really relaxing, letting go. And just seeing if you can arrive here more fully. Yes. Well, beautiful. And so you can keep your eyes closed, or you can open them up if you like. I thought I'd speak a little bit, about Easter. And Easter it's an interesting time, for most of us in this northern hemisphere. Easter is a time when spring starts really coming online. And I think what Easter really symbolizes is the energy of new life. New life. that we are waking up above and beyond the old things which have frightened us, which we had fear about, which we had confusion about. But the old things of just old habitual ways of being. And so I invite you to join me in this space. This spring, saying, okay, like, what do I want in my life that's new, that's fresh, that is awake? And am I willing to let go of the past? To let the past fully die? Fully die. And so, resurrection is life basically after death. But in this case, we're inviting the death of all that which does not serve us. All that which does not serve us. Now I can say, for many years of my life, I've witnessed this thing, or this habit that I've had, where I get to like 80, 90% being done with some type of project or some type of big bike ride, whatever it is, whether I'm building something, whether I'm cooking, whether I'm doing the dishes, whether I'm, writing a paper, or, back when I was in school. And I just get the thing done like 80 or 90% done. And my teacher used to say, Craig, it's that last 10% that makes all the difference in the world. Last 10%. And, I'm the kind of guy who just will look at something and, say, well, looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. And, why don't we just call it good, call it done, pretty easygoing guy. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just noticed that this habit, it's just a habit of mind, a habit of my psyche. And it just kind of spilled over into everything in my life. And I've kind of been watching this habit for a couple decades now, and just working with it, just working like, why do I have this thing? And what would it be like if I just kept going past 90%? And I noticed that my mind, it just put up this like arbitrary wall. This arbitrary wall, this arbitrary number, this arbitrary realm of effort where just said, okay, like this is good enough. We don't have to do the whole thing. And again, it's kind of a silly example. But if any of us are deeply honest about our psyche, we can find all kinds of things within ourselves. I mean, you might not have this thing. You may have a perfectionist in you that you're always doing 100%. And so, well, for you, then it might be relaxing a little bit. For me, it might be, finishing, taking it to the end. Taking it to the end. But these are the things that we have to let die if we're going to live in the awakened state. We cannot be a creature of habit. We have to be willing to be in the here and now and seeing what the truth is, seeing what the truth is, seeing what the truth holds for us, seeing what it is, listening to something deeper within ourselves than habit. Because at the end of the day, most human beings, that's all they are. All they are is purely habit. And I can say that over the years, I've seen this, again, it's another silly example, but I've seen a number of movies where they start the movie kind of explaining the characters. That the characters, here's Mr. Smith, whatever, and he wakes up every day at this time, and he goes out and he gets the mail, he drinks his cup of coffee. And it always struck me that, oh, here's someone, writing a play, a movie, a screenwriter, whatever that job is called. But it's so true that most of us, we're locked into our character, we're locked into our role, we're locked into our habits. And can we do something new, fresh, and alive? The awakened one, they will always surprise you. Always surprise you. And again, like I hate telling you all my stories about me rock climbing, but I went out again this weekend rock climbing, and it's just that time of year. We have there's 2 months in the spring and 2 months in the fall that we do when the weather's just perfect out in the desert. And sometimes we go out in the winter too, but the summer is just, it can get just ridiculously hot out there. And so anyways, I was out climbing. And again, I went out, and this place, it doesn't have any cell range. So I just went out, showed up, and basically, my friend told me where he was camping. He wasn't there. I prayed to God, to connect me to him. And it's like a couple 100-mile park. It's a gigantic park. And within a couple hours, God connected me to my friends. And so here I was out rock climbing with these 2 professionals again. And, in the past, when I go climbing, I might do 1 climb, 2 climbs. And a lot of times I'm failing a lot, failing a lot. Of look at my history of climbing. I'm not that great. I've been, I give it my all, but I just didn't have the skills, don't have the strength, just don't do it enough. And so there's been a lot of failure in the past. And then when I've been climbing with these 2, my 2 friends, Devin and Pamela, I've been getting into their vibrational frequency. I haven't been staying in my own frequency. I've been stepping into theirs. And theirs, like when you're around a professional athlete, they'll look at something and they'll say, I got that. I can do this. Me, I don't necessarily look at something really hard, like, a vertical rock wall, and say, I got this. I look at it and say, that looks really hard. Like that looks really hard. I don't think I can do that. It's what is my normal thoughts. You can tell from my laughter, like that's just kind of how I've been. And for me, I love just being out in the spaciousness of the desert, and like watching some golden eagles flying around us, and seeing the hugeness of the sky and the beautiful red rocks, and just like the timeless eternalness of the this place we go climbing. Bear Zeros, I guess they call it now. It used to be called Indian Creek. We still all call it Indian Creek, but it's just so beautiful out there. I'm just happy just to be out there. But again, these 2, they challenge me, and they believe in me. They have faith in me. And I've been climbing everything they've been climbing. Now, I haven't been doing it as beautifully or eloquently as they have, but I've been getting to the top of everything. And it's funny too, because there were some people who kind of took note of who I was climbing with. They got all excited, and there's like crowds gathering, watching these. I guess the 3 of us climb now. And I was amazed. I was amazed by what I could do. By what I could do. And not in any egoic way. But I was amazed that what happens when you step into a new vibrational frequency, when you step out of your old, like some of us have a saboteur, or some of us have like kind of a defeatist mentality, or some of us have, like me, looks good, like good enough. I got halfway up. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll come down and give it a good try. But, now I'm around these two individuals who are just incredible. And it's making me, rise up to join them, rise up to meet them. And so in the awakened state, we're willing to look at our behavior. We're willing to look at our habits. We're willing to look at everything within us. And just ask a basic question, like, is it true? Is it true? Like there's been this talk, in the past, like that old saying of this glass ceiling. Like so many of us, we have this glass ceiling where we think we can't go past it. But all of us are limitless. Limitless in our consciousness. Like we have the potentiality to be limitless in love, be limitless in forgiveness, to be limitless in strength and power and divinity. If we're willing to look beyond where we normally look. But that's the thing about humans. Like sometimes our parents told us how we are, how we look, how we're supposed to be. And then 30 years later, we're still living in that habit. And the Buddha would call that samsara. Samsara, but people can talk about samsara, but a lot of people don't even know what it means. Samsara is basically just the force of habit. It's the force of the past. And so it's a great question, like, how am I living? Am I living in the past? Am I taking a past fear and projecting it into the future? Is that what I'm doing? Is that what's holding me back from being in the type of relationship I want to be in, from having the vocation I want to have, from even simply experiencing one's own Buddha nature? Like, is that what I'm doing? Is that what I'm doing? I had another funny one where we moved into this house, and this house, it's kind of small and doesn't have a proper garage. And so I thought, okay, I had the thought, I'll build a shed. But then I also had the thought, gosh, I'm just so busy. Be nice if I could find a guy to come build the shed. And so I'm thinking through all my friends. Like the majority of my friends are, this town I live in, it's funny. So the majority of my friends are either like framers, like builders, and or growers, growing the green stuff that's legal here in Colorado, and or both, so like they often do both jobs at the same time. I live in a town that doesn't really have any industry. And so most of my friends, I've been asking, like, hey, anyone want to come build a shed? I got a bunch of jobs, and I can kind of line them out, and they can do the work. And I've just been getting no. Like everyone's just so busy. And so I thought, okay, it looks like I'm going to do it. Looks like God is wanting me to do it. Looks like God is going to do it through me. Through me. And so this great question, can we surrender to the truth? The truth of what is, the truth that's right here in front of us. And so we went climbing all weekend, and then came home this afternoon and put the framing bags on and got the saws out and just started framing up a floor to this shed. and getting after it. And I saw there was just, again, like this subtle form of laziness or just wanting someone else to do it. But as soon as I picked up the saws, started making some cuts and getting out the nail gun and, punching it all together, realized, geez, like, this is kind of fun. Like, I don't need to have this subtle wall of laziness, or this subtle wall of, maybe laziness is too strong a word, avoidance. Or it's one of the things the ego does, is kind of like always kicking the can down the road, as they say. One of the things, another thing like my teacher taught me is just like, let's just do it. Let's get to work. So he used to tell me, if you ever put anything off, you have a list, you find the thing you want to do the least, and you do that one first. And in yoga, we speak about these veils, the things that veil your consciousness. Now, consciousness is unlimited in its nature, unlimited. But if we're always identified with our ego, and again, like, I'm not saying that ego is bad, but ego basically is just a realm of limitation. It is a character. And that character has rules that it lives by. And the rules are basically limitations that it lives by. Like, I've been living by this limitation, and I can't climb as good as my friends. And now 2 weekends in a row, they've taken me out and they've showed me that I can get up anything. And again, like, I've been amazed. I've been amazed. And that's part of spiritual awakening, a big part, to have your mind, to have your limitation blown open. Blown open. To push yourself beyond. And to see what comes. To see what comes. And again, I'll just use another silly example. When I was waiting there for my friends, just kind of sitting in this parking lot and reading my book, and the time was kind of dragging on. Saying, gosh, I wonder if these guys will show up, if they're going to climb at this one spot. And I started to feel some doubt in my mind. It's kind of, how doubt is, it just kind of floats in and out of your consciousness. But then when I looked out, like I looked way out into this valley. It's kind of like a valley, a canyon. I heard God just calling me back to this particular rock wall. And there's probably like 10 different rock walls. And I heard God calling me to this one. And I said, okay, well, I guess if they don't show up the next couple minutes, maybe I'll just go on a hike back to that one wall, like all the way in the back. And then sure enough, a couple minutes later, they showed up. And I always feel like like I'm slowing these guys down. So I'm a little, I don't know what the right word is, but I just, sometimes I feel, like unsure, like if they want me to be with them, because again, they're so advanced, and, they saw me and they were so happy to see me. And I was like, hey guys, can I climb with you? And they're like, of course, you're climbing with us today. Of course you are, Craig. I said, okay, good. Because I feel kind of like a third wheel, or like I'm slowing you guys down. And they said, well, where are we climbing? And then they pointed right back to the wall that God was calling me to. And again, I just inwardly smiled. And, sometimes when we know how to listen, when we don't give into doubt. Because the doubt was telling me, oh, maybe you should just drive home and you should hurry up and get back. Because Sunday's Easter and you got to be the Easter bunny for my little girl. And so, I had these thoughts kind of flowing around my consciousness, and I just heard this silent voice of truth just pulling me, way back to this wall. And again, like a couple miles away, way out in the distance, the end of the canyon. And I saw that even if I just went out on a walk, I would have ran into my friends, because that's where they were headed anyways. And that's the beautiful thing about the truth. It can guide you, can lead you, can redirect the trajectory of your life if you allow it. If you allow it. When you listen to your habit, the voice of habit, then we just seem to just keep repeating the same life over and over again. That's why people tend to get in the same relationship over and over again, just with a different face. The new person has a different face, but it's the same issues, the same things we trip over again and again. And so it's a great question that we can ask ourselves is, well, how do I hold myself back? How or why do I choose to limit myself? Like some people, many people have told me they limit themselves. So they're afraid if they're seen, they will be hurt. Now, many of us are incredibly bright lights. And some of us, it'll sound crazy, but some of us were literally burned on a stake in previous incarnations for being too bright, too awake, too gifted. Maybe we're a healer or something, or a witch, and we were burned on a stake. And that may have happened in Salem, right? In Salem. May have happened in the town square in Paris, or in Budapest, or in I don't know where, in Moscow. That may have happened. But in this incarnation, if we bring ourselves into reality, like we're not going to get burned on a stake for being a bright light. That's not what's going to happen. Like some people might be a little irritated or a little bit jealous, but some people might make fun of you or gossip, but none of us will be burned on a stake. And so it's good to bring our fears. It's good to bring them into reality. And really ask, what is the truth? Am I willing to be big, to be bright? Am I willing to be something different than I've been? The other day I was, again, a silly story, but the other day I was at these hot springs here in Durango, and I was there with my little girl, and it was early in the morning. And I saw these guys, they're kind of in hot spring land. They had their robes on, walking around with their robes and their big sunglasses. And, they look like some 40-something-year-old guys. And, at this the hot springs, you can go, they have a little kind of, I don't know what you call it, I guess a little bar where you can get a little something to eat, or you can get a drink. It's like 10 in the morning, and these two guys were getting a couple of drinks, like alcoholic drinks. And I thought, my God, like by the age of 40, have you not figured out yet that day drinking is a terrible idea? It's a terrible idea. Like, I think I figured that out when I was 14. That being drunk in the day is a terrible idea. Terrible idea. But for some of us, like, we don't learn. And again, like, I don't need to be goody two shoes. Like, if someone wants to have a glass of wine with dinner, it's like, whatever, like, enjoy your glass of wine. But at 10 a.m., like, no one needs to be drinking. You're just destroying your day, destroying your consciousness. It's like, what are we doing here? What are we living for? And for most of us, it's not alcohol that we destroy our day with. It's, I hate to say it, but it's probably social media. We just spend hours and hours being lost in the world of Instagram or, what's that other one? The TikTok, playing that game. It's like, what is this my truth? Is there a greater truth? Is there a greater truth? And some people, I've spoken to a number of people, the song about this, they relate to themselves as eternal spiritual students. I said, well, at some point, like your job is, yes, we need to heal. Yes, we need to wake up. But then at some point, our job is to go out and to do good work in the world, to share the light, to be the brightness, not just to keep showing up to spiritual events, just receiving without giving. And ultimately, that's what this path is about you waking up and you living your life, you giving of your life, you being the brilliance, you being the one who is resurrected, who steps into a new life, a heavenly life, a holy life here on planet Earth. So anyways, if anyone has a question, you can bring it forward. I think a couple email questions. Let me see if I can get to these. And again, if you do send me an email, please send a really short one. It's the nature of my brain. I have a really hard time retaining information if the email is really long. I'm just going to read this out loud to help me. Hi, Craig. I've been listening carefully to your talk on faith and grace on the path. The moment I am having to work with my own self-hatred as a powerful force in my awakening, I experience tremendous visceral rage against myself. Punching, swearing, attacking physically. But when it passes, I feel nothing. I feel lighter, and it seems to be clearing space which was not there before. It feels extremely strange. This is kind of a fun question. Seems like I have no choice about where the energy is taking me. This began yesterday with a sense of energy clearing from my throat. I've been incapacitated by fear and ignorance for too long. For many years, it felt like the energy simply wanted to destroy me. Now it seems like it wants to show me that the limitations and fears I lived under for years were self-imposed figments of my imagination. Well, this is beautiful. This is right in alignment with teaching. Bearing in mind, I have had no trustworthy guidance from a teacher in that time, and this path is entirely new to me. I'd value any insight you can bring to this. Yeah. From John. Yeah, it's a beautiful question, John. So often on the spiritual path, we're taught spirituality in this very basic way. Like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't be angry, like don't do all these things. But I was always curious about anger because I had a good deal of fire in my consciousness. And so anger was one of these things that I tripped over again and again and again. And, one of the things that I noticed about the energy of anger, if I allowed it, anger had the potentiality, the possibility, the energy behind it that could help me push past these self-imposed limitations that I've had, limitations that I adopted. So sometimes when you get really angry, it's very easy to follow the truth, to listen to the truth, to step beyond egoic limitations. Now, anger, of course, can steer us in the wrong direction too. But for me, that I found in the past, like when I allowed myself to be angry, that sometimes there would be, a lot of fiery words that were shared. But when I looked at the gist of what was shared, I realized that this was the truth. This was the truth. Whereas in the past, like, my psychology was kind of, I would just hold everything in and put myself last, let everyone go first, let people take advantage of me. And when I let the anger come forward, it broke down that wall, that behavior. And it was a way of honoring me, honoring that this one here should not always be last and shouldn't be picked on or taken advantage of by others in life. And what John's speaking about here is self-hatred. Now, of course, I don't ever condone self-hatred. Like self-hatred, well, any kind of hatred is poisonous, is toxic for us. But if we look at the energy that's behind it, if we have tremendous visceral rage against ourselves, normally it's rage at a limitation that we have. It's rage at a habit. Like some of us cannot quit drinking until we get angry enough at ourselves and at our addiction to finally say, screw this, I'm going to take my power back. I'm going to get my life back. And so sometimes we need to get angry and feel the fire and the heat of this anger so that there can be swift, decisive action. It's the energy behind anger, as the Buddha taught, swift, decisive action. You go to a Tibetan temple, like the one I studied at, they have all these wrathful deities. If you need something done, like sometimes you call upon, you pray to the wrathful deity, and she will hurry up and knock those walls down and help you get it done. Help you get it done. Fire is a part of life. Sometimes we need to knock down some walls, some doors. Sometimes we need to burn some things to the ground before something new can come forward and be in its place. So John, the thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is just to feel into the heat and the intensity and see if you can harness the power of the rage or the anger without swearing, without physically attacking yourself. So then we're using the anger in a helpful way. And so just to use that anger, just to see clearly, to see the things that don't work, and then actively choose not to do that which doesn't work, and then to choose that which does work. So the more you allow anger to be directed into your power of choice, the cleaner and more efficient your anger will be. So there's no reason for you to hate yourself or to punch yourself or attack yourself physically. Like, these things aren't actually helpful. They're not helpful. But if you see a habit that you have, and it's a habit of limitation, I encourage you to punch through that. And to punch through that. To punch through it. To be honest, like, I went out Friday night to go out to the desert. I was really tired. I took my, I had a full day, full work week. And then after work, my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, can I go to the pool?" And I was like, "Hey, sweetie, I'm going to go out rock climbing." But I was like, "Yeah, like, why don't I just take you to the pool real quick?" And so our pools are hot springs, and those, they kind of cook you. And so after a couple hours there, we were having a good old time. And it's like, geez, I don't want to leave the hot springs. I don't even know if I want to go climbing now. And so anyways, I brought her back home. My van was all packed up. I had all my gear, but I was pretty tired. And I said, like, what am I going to do? And I started to drive up and over the mountain pass. I started getting really sleepy. And I heard the voice in my head, just turn around, go back, Craig. Like, this is a moment to harness some of that fire. And so, basically I just turned up the music, pulled over at this little natural food store, got myself a kombucha, and I was like, okay, here we go. Like, we're going to do this. Turn up that music real loud, wake myself up. So it's going to punch through the tiredness, punch through it. But we don't want to be punching ourselves. Like, I don't want anyone punching themselves. So, like, this is the energy of Tantra. On the path of Tantra, John, that basically Tantra is working with what's here and harnessing that energy and steering it in the direction of truth. And so God is showing you these aspects of your limitation. And the anger is here. It's wanting to knock some walls down, but sometimes the anger, it implodes, it turns in on itself, which, again, that's dangerous. And sometimes it explodes outward on others. Again, that can be dangerous too. But when we bring a conscious mindfulness awareness to our anger, and we let this fire burn, it can greatly speed up our path. Like, so many of us are far too comfortable with the voice of our own egoic nature. We're far too comfortable with it. We let it get away with so much. You don't have to hate your ego, but if you have the fire there, the fire can look at the ego and say, this is a bunch of crap. Like this isn't the truth. This isn't, and that doesn't have to be a harsh thing. You can just be like, this isn't the truth. And I am choosing now, not tomorrow. I'm choosing now to step forward in the truth. I'm choosing now to get her done. What does get her done mean? It's like I'm choosing to step into my highest nature and live from that place. Choosing not to allow limitation to lead me and guide me. I'm choosing not to just hang out on the couch and do nothing. And unfortunately, this is why Putin rules the world. This is why there's an authoritarian ruling, I think the two biggest countries in the world, Russia and China. Because people are letting them get away with it. This is why our country still is locked in gridlock in these stupid Republican Democrat dance. We're just fighting with each other over nothing. Instead of learning to work together, having a third party that can break this dance up. It's because spiritual people are busy ignoring this world. Just thinking about heaven all the time. Just thinking about being awake, but not wanting to act. Because, it doesn't feel good. I just want to hang out on the couch and be spiritual instead of living in the truth. If you ever hang out with any great master, they're doing incredible things. They're doing incredible things for the world. Now, some of you know Ali from Pakistan, in the Kundalini group in the Sangha. And so he grew up in this family, like a political family in Pakistan. And he's using his time, his energy, his power to try to do good work. Last year I was speaking to him, or maybe not even last year, a couple months ago, and he was talking about doing all this aid work for Afghan refugees. Now he's trying to help out with a school of children who are, like they're orphans from terrorist attacks, whether suicide bombings, terrorism in general. And so he's using his time, his energy to try to support these kids, to try to support refugee causes. So he has a heart, and he's not just going, and he has a lot of fire. He's not just going to sit back. And do, just keep reading spiritual books. Sometimes we do that on the path. We just get so comfortable in our own little spiritual worlds, and we ignore this world. And then meanwhile, we have these authoritarians and dictators and gridlock, because all the egoic people want to rule the world. We need spiritual people to be awake, to be alive, to be present, to be grounded, to be practical, to be shining their light into the world, to be active and engaged. And so anyways, okay. So John, harness your anger and steer it in the direction of truth. And see if you can do this with mindfulness. So it'll be much more efficient, and you'll feel a greater sweetness, even though there's a lot of fire here. You'll have a greater sweetness if you're not making yourself wrong or hating yourself. Like, you can still accomplish, this breaking down the walls of limitation without self-hatred. Without self-hatred. Okay, here's another question. Hi, Craig. Just wanted to reach out. I'm still stuck, confused on Kundalini and relationship. I love my relationship and am afraid Kundalini is going to take mine away. Is it possible that Kundalini takes away from you your relationship temporarily? Yeah, God can do all kinds of things in the realm of relationship. Now, normally God only wants to take things that are untrue, that are not serving you. And so a better question then, is God wanting to take my relationship away from me? Is, I want you to be empowered. And I want you to honestly look and see if you could find a reason how or why this relationship is not true. It's good because you're saying something, paradoxical here. Like, I love my relationship. Well, if you love it, give yourself to it. Give yourself to it. If you love someone, give yourself to them. Enjoy it. why do we keep thinking that kundalini is going to take? He's asked me this question a couple different times. And I'm smiling because maybe it's more than a couple different times. And so sometimes when we have a haunting feeling that something's going to be taken away from us, instead of thinking that God has the power and God's going to take it away, what I encourage you to do is to look from a place of your own empowerment and see if there's a part of you that's sabotaging, if there's perhaps a shadow that's here that keeps asking this question, that keeps doubting the relationship. So is there any sense of sabotaging? Like sometimes we have something really good, but we don't think we're worthy of it. And so we just destroy it. I've met a number of people who they just sabotage relationships. Like because they don't have faith. They don't believe that they're worthy of love. And so a good relationship comes along. They find a way to destroy it. I'm just like, gosh, you don't have to do that. You do not have to do that. And so is it sabotaging? Or is there a shadow within you that's where you have a need that isn't being realized in this relationship? And this shadow is going to make you keep doubting this relationship until eventually it fails. And then when it fails, you might go out and get that one need met. And sometimes it's an unwholesome need. It's some kind of shadowy need. And then afterwards, we might realize, oh my gosh, I just destroyed something great because I was unwilling to look at my shadow. And so like a shadow might just be, we desire to, have all different types of cake. We want to have 10 different types of cake. And that's not going to work if we are in a long-term committed relationship. But our shadow comes with, we won't acknowledge it, but our shadow comes forward and just starts doubting this one good relationship that we have. Because there's a part of us that wants to eat the 10 different kinds of cake. And so is it that? Is it something else? Sometimes I was guilty of this on the path, is I kept blaming God for my life and the destruction of my life. And I was actually unwilling to do the work and look at the things that I needed to look at. And so God had to come in and kind of clean house again and again and again, because I was unwilling to do my work. But I just kept blaming God. And I hope that makes sense. If I stopped blaming God and took my power back, or looked at what the truth was and was living the truth, then God wouldn't have to take anything away from me. And keep in mind, God is only taking things away to bring you something greater. To bring you something greater. But in this case, I'm not certain God is doing that. This sounds, like there's some type of shadow that's floating around of one's consciousness that's veiling you from seeing clearly. That's my guess here. But if you have a good reason to leave the relationship, I'd fully support you. But you said in the beginning, I love my relationship. Then why are we doubting? For some people, doubt is a way of life. They don't know how simply to trust, to let go and to trust, because it makes them feel really vulnerable or something. And so I'm going to encourage you, my friend, to look into this a little more fully. Okay, let's hear from Aaron. Aaron, are you here?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. I've really appreciated the theme of this satsang. I feel like I'm leaning into a lot of things in my life that I've habitually constantly fallen back from, and some fire would be really helpful. Some fire would be really helpful. And so quick question of business, Craig, and then the question that I'd like to ask. I've checked on your website a few times. The retreat isn't up yet. Is that correct?
No, it's up.
It's up. I'm just seeing it still says March 3rd through 5th on my browser. I put a question in the chat about that. Can anyone else come
there's a
forward?
number of people have registered for it. Yeah, and I'm pulling it up. I see it right now. Oh yeah, it does say March 3rd through 5th.
Okay, but it's still
It's that's just a mistake my assistant made. And when you click on it, on the next screen, it says May 12th through the 14th. So thank you for that. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to get that corrected.
My pleasure. And I will register them. Perfect. So now my question.
Let me just say this. Can someone send me a note to fix that after Satsang? I don't want to be writing right now. I want to get to Aaron's question, but if someone could do that for me, it'll be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to send you an email after Satsang.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Right. My question, I've heard you speak about this before, but I'd love to hear you riff on it now. As in my process, I'm noticing that as, let's just say, more identity loosens up or falls away and I become more open and kind of sensitive, less defended. I just feel what's in my environment a lot more. Like I was talking with a friend yesterday and they were talking about some relational conflict and I could really feel the pain in that. Or I work on a crisis line. So, I'm encountering people's intense emotions or very difficult situations and pain all day. And I'm really like, wow, some things really impact me. And it's not so much like I'm so sensitive, I can't handle this. It's more just like, wow, it's really impacting me. And maybe a part of my consciousness is wondering like, and I know it's not true. I think I just need to hear it from you is like, oh, is this a problem? Am I merging with people? Do I not have strong enough boundaries? It doesn't feel that way, but anyways, I'll let you.
I want you to hear what you just said. Like I'm feeling people, I'm sensitive, I'm noticing, that this is impacting me. But then I invite you to look and see, like, is it impacting the depth of my being? So the little sensitivities of life, like what you notice, like with a friend, and you notice what their consciousness is like. Does it impact the depth of your being?
No.
Yeah. No. So can we place our attention there? Now with sensitivity, if you don't place your attention there, if you place your attention on the surface of your being, the surface of your personality, and like I say something really mean and rude to you, like afterwards you might be like, God, Craig's a jerk. Felt like he was attacking me. It felt very personal. And it hurt. It really hurt me. It wasn't fair what he said. He said this in front of the whole group. And like we can be lost in that realm of sensitivity. And so this is, one of those shift in perspective type of games, type of dances. When you listen to the depth of your being, when you stay rooted in the depth of your being, you can feel all kinds of things. But if you're rooted in the truth, the depth of you see that all of these things are really irrelevant. They're just waves on the ocean. They come and they go. If we identify at the surface, I mean, hell, there's people who in their own life, because someone said something mean to them on the internet, it's like, oh my God, like, if we're so utterly sensitive and so fragile and so, what's the word you used? You used the word unguarded in the beginning.
I do, and the reason for that is because it's not that I'm becoming more sensitive, it's that I'm becoming less defended.
Good, but in order to be less defended, in order to step into our unguarded nature, like the way I do that is the unguarded nature is like this anchor that just drops way down into the earth. And so as that anchor is dropping way down to into the earth, and I am unguarded, I become like a mountain. And so then anyone can, again, I'll be graphic here, because like if we look at like what happens on mountains all day long, animals are shitting, pissing, digging holes, just tearing the mountain apart. It's being hit by clouds and storms and snow and glaciers and erosion, but that mountain is sitting there anchored, unmovable. Unmovable. And so whenever I think of being unguarded, I think of being unguarded. It's like this depth of being. But if I think about like being in my ego and being, but he's like a high pitch, but like unguarded, it's like you be highly sensitive and you be taken advantage of, and people knock the crap out of you here on planet Earth. So I want us to imagine unguarded. Like if we're going to step into the world that's unguarded, we're stepping into the depth of Buddha nature. There's a power, there's a majesty about it. There's a fearlessness about it, and like there's this strength. There's just this strength. And to be unguarded, when you're connected to strength, it doesn't matter how things feel. But if we're unguarded in a shallow way, and we're worried about how things feel, this is a very dangerous thing to be unguarded. Unguarded, you're going to feel everything coming on to you. Everything coming on to you. And so I like to look at, like, if I'm unguarded and I'm starting to feel things, hell, I feel unguarded all the time, but if I start to feel things and things are getting to me, in a sensitivity kind of way, it normally means one or two things. One, I'm not connected to my depth. Or two, this is something my teacher used to remind me, is I'm overtired. My teacher used to tell me this. He said, Craig, on the spiritual path, the most dangerous thing. I was like, what's the most dangerous thing? He said, getting overtired. I was like, that's the most dangerous thing. It's like, yeah, because you lose your will, you lose your bearing, you lose your depth, and you just become at the mercy of your habitual nature, the mercy of the ego, and you become the mercy of everyone else's energy around you. And so, if we're overtired, we tend to take on, it's just a lot easier to take things on. And so, we use a psychological word, okay, I need a boundary or this or that, but I just like this basic sense of humanity where we understand our human body form limitation, that this thing needs rest, we need to recharge. If we're overtired, we're probably going to be taking stuff on. Yeah. Anything else you want to share around that?
I just say that it's very helpful, because I think part of the reason that my process is moving forward right now is because I've finally it's probably like stepping deeper into my hara and my body, really saying no to my addictions. That spirit has been like, dude, just like, it's time to cut it out. Like, no more playing around, time to cut it out. And then moving into other places in my life that I've also been very like, sometimes you use the word wet noodle, like that I've been a wet noodle around, like my business and my finances and stepping into a public role and offering what I have to the world. And it's
Yeah.
like, cut it out. Like there's no time to be wavering now. Like just move. And since I've made the decision to do that, it's like things have shifted for me, and my the awakening path has also begun to progress. And so this idea of rooting down and into the earth and being in the hara and being in the depth just feels so right on right now, because then there's a lot of conditioning coming forward, lots of stuff that I've struggled with for a very long time, and that it's like I knew it wasn't me, but I was so confident it was me. And now that it's being shaken up, it's like, whoa, what is happening here? Like, I'm much emptier. I'm moving forward. It's profound. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for
Yeah.
it.
And that's beautiful. I mean, in a sense, like that's what resurrection is that willingness to go down into the depth of the being, the depth of our being, and allowing that clearing house energy to flow through, like to allow all that stuff to die.
Yeah.
And allowing all of it to kick up dust and show its fangs and this and that. And you just let it die. You don't touch it. You let it die. You let it die. You let it die. And then you're given a new life. A life of radical power, radical light. And then you feel that. You feel it, then it just has this practical byproduct of your finances tend to be in order. You tend to be busy work-wise. You just tend to be in the flow of things.
Right.
Once house has been cleared. So that's the new life, as you get into the good flow, the true flow, and out of the habitual flow. But that habitual flow has to die. And we have to be willing to see it. And the big thing with sensitivity is we have to be careful, because when all that dust is being kicked up, like we can say, oh my gosh, like this is giving me a headache, or I don't like this, or this doesn't feel good. But spiritual awakening, people don't like this, but spiritual awakening has nothing to do with feeling. It has everything to do with the truth.
Right.
The ego has everything to do with the feeling. Nothing to do with the truth. The ego's like, I like to feel good, don't want to feel bad. The truth is, I don't care how it feels. I want the truth. I am the truth. I'm living the truth. I'm acting the truth. I'm being the truth. This is the truth. If it feels good or bad is irrelevant. Whether there's sensitivity here, or, it feels whatever, irrelevant. So anyways, beautiful question. Anything else?
Just one more thing. It's really just a comment. I was thinking that since we're in the theme of Easter, we just had Good Friday, and how unbelievably rooted in his depth Jesus must have been to get up on the cross.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the whole dying part, and just being willing to be up there. And just like, all right, I'm gonna stay here. Rebirth comes, but right now, and it's kind of a simultaneously rebirth while I'm on the cross kind of thing, because it's definitely both simultaneously. But as I'm going through the conditioning, there are times that it's just like, what the fuck is happening? This is very hard. This is very overwhelming, and I'm just gonna stay here.
And I'm just gonna stay.
And I'm just gonna stay here
because that's the truth. Because that's the truth. I'm gonna stay here, and I mean the word I use is gonna let it burn. I'm going to let this thing burn itself out. And that's how the Buddha spoke about nirvana, is basically it's a flame that's burned itself out, like the samsaric habitual nature has burned itself out. And it's that staying that you're describing. And that's the work. Like sometimes the work is just to sit in the fire and let it burn. And the ego may kick and scream and whine, and again, like that's human. That's very human. But again, if we listen to it, if we go with it, we're just going to prolong this whole experience, versus saying just okay, like it's not the truth. No one's dying here. It seems like I'm gonna die. No one's dying here. We're gonna have a greater life. We're gonna have a greater life. And that's the thing that most of us don't realize. Whereas to be giving up something, it's like you're going to get a greater life. Like we're trading up. We're not trading down. The ego always thinks it's losing something. It's like, you're not going to lose something. You're going to get something much, much better.
Yeah.
Much, much better. So anyways, thanks for sharing. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to look in the comments here. Here's a fun one. I was a morning drinker just 2 years ago. Then I crashed and burned and stopped drinking alcohol completely. Yeah. And, it's just a crazy thing. Alcohol, it's a crazy thing. Addiction. And some of us, we learn it young. Some of us, it's just, it's the biggest fight of our life. But it's important to remember, like, this is our path. This is our path. And the path is always now. It's always whatever it is that's right in front of you. Is, can we say no to that which is untrue and yes to the truth? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I apologize, everyone, for a lot of comments about the retreat having the wrong date on the front there. So thanks for catching that. And I'll say this, just in regards to sensitivity. One thing that spiritual people have been good at is cloistering themselves. So taking time alone and being in silence. Like, that's a good thing. Now, some people overdo it and just get this habit of being cloistered so much that we don't do anything with our life. We just read spiritual books and, imagine the consciousness of God. And we want to live that truth. But, in the modern age, it's a good reminder that if we're feeling overworked, to spend some time in silence. And that's one of the gifts of retreat, is just saying, okay, I want to press the pause button on my life. And I'm just going to step into this flow of divinity. But we all need times to recharge. And it's one of the things with me, that one of the reasons I love going out into the desert, because I spend a lot of time, often I drive out there by myself. It's a couple hours, and then I'm camping, by myself, and sitting by the fire by myself. Or even when I'm up, like, we did a multi-pitch climb, and we climbed up to this big shelf, so basically like a big platform area, is maybe 20 feet long and 10 feet wide. And so I sat there for about 6 hours. Just, my friends, they were doing some work on the wall and putting up some new routes. But, a lot of times I was just sitting there watching the clouds blow by, being completely disconnected from all electronics and devices and emails and my kids and my family and this and that. And just being there in the sky. So utterly healing. So utterly healing. And we need that. We need that. So it's important to remember with sensitivity, like we do need time alone. We do need time in silence. But we also don't want to be the spiritual people that are utterly avoiding life. And I can say the first 10 years of my path was me utterly avoiding life to the best of my ability. Some kind of like revolt against life. Catherine's writing this. God keeps telling me to rest. Getting a little nervous. It's the lazy part of my ego, but I think it's probably more or less than about trusting my instincts. Yeah, and I encourage you to trust that. Okay. All right. Someone's telling me to be more politically aware on Facebook, so I'll do my best. I haven't been watching the news too much, and so it's one of those things of like trying to be more aware, but also not getting sucked into the dance of confusion on the on the internet or on the news or whatever it is. I go back and forth with that one, especially in the last couple of years it's been so crazy. So anyways, okay, well, I think this might be a good place to stop. Let me just see if there's anything else that wants to come. Please sign up for the retreat. And I'm going to encourage you all just to look at your life and to see if there's a way that you personally are withholding, or with you kind of sitting back and coasting. And again, like Catherine wrote, like sometimes we need to sit back and have a deeper rest, but it's important to have conscious rest. To have conscious rest. My eldest daughter, I used to catch her like when she was a teenager, and she'd say, "Dad, I'm so tired, I'm so overwhelmed." And I'd say, "Oh, okay, like, yeah, just like maybe just hang out, and get a little rest, sweetie." And I'd go in her room and it'd be like 10:30 at night, and she'd just be watching just Netflix, just like when it's just on autoplay and things just keep playing one after the next. Like, that's not rest, my dear. Like, that's not what you need. Having some time in silence, having some time alone, having some time in nature, having some time just laying out in your yard under a tree. Like, our bodies and our nervous system need that. We can't just be go, go, go all the time. And so it's important to listen to the truth, however the truth is presenting itself to us. And so anyway, so much love to each of you. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Good night, everyone.